very much. All right, at this time, we have our sermon today to be brought to us by Mr. Matthew Steele. His title is Mission Impossible.
Well, hello everyone. It's good to be back. I was starting to think that maybe getting healthy again was a mission impossible. I'm still got as you can tell, a blocked head, so hopefully that will go away shortly. So, mission impossible. What am I talking about? Anybody have any ideas? Life? My wife says life. Specifically, living with me is mission impossible. Joseph, what did you say? The spy movie, or those of us that are old enough to have seen it first time through or on reruns, the original TV series, right? Who remembers the original TV series? Oh, yeah. And have you watched any of the movies? Maybe? Some? A few? Well, hopefully it'll still apply, because I'm stealing from the movie. We saw it, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago? Can't remember exactly. It was like the day that I felt better, and then I felt sick again. So, really interesting movie if you haven't seen the latest one. And if you haven't seen any of them, I would go back to, Mission Impossible 7, and then watch Mission Impossible 8. Or just go back to Mission Impossible 1, get a lot of food in for the weekend, and just binge watch. It's a fascinating movie. It's always fun. I mean, it's Tom Cruise. It's the classic American fun spy movie with lots of action and maybe just the right mix of love interest for the ladies that we drag along to these spy movies. And, it's just a fun movie, and there isn't too much language, really, in these movies, which is rare these days. Not too much unnecessary imagery. It's just fun. But I don't know if you're like me, but popular movies, books, TV shows, sometimes they hit home with a message, don't they? There's something that the screenwriters put together, whether it was their subconscious working in there, the things that they learned when they were forced to go to Sunday school as kids, or whatever it was, but sometimes we get a spiritual message coming through in our popular movies. And it's not overt, it's accidental. I mean, we could pick one of my favorite movie themes is Superman, right? Superman, there's a lot of messianic imagery in Superman. Well, in this movie, the latest one, I'm not going to spoil it too much. I'm just going to read one little part of the dialogue from it. Really caught my attention, our attention, when we were watching it. And it was just like, wow, this is quite a powerful message. It was at the very beginning of the movie. I think a few scenes had happened, and then it's really just kind of setting up this set of dialogue. And each line is spoken by each of the different individuals that are in the movie, the cast in their roles. And it's really fascinating. So it starts like this. It says, "We live and die in the shadows, for those we hold close and for those we never meet." And if you don't know the movie series, this is kind of like a motto that they've generated for the super secret Mission Impossible spies. This is like their mantra, what they aspire to, because they're spies and they're living and dying in the shadows, but for everyone else, for those that they love and for those that they don't even know. And then it goes on to say, "The end you've always feared is coming. The anti-God, this entity, has multiple personalities. A self-aware, self-learning, truth-eating, digital parasite infesting all of cyberspace. An enemy that is everywhere and nowhere and has no center. Patiently listening, reading, watching, harvesting our deepest personal secrets for years. Able to beguile, blackmail, bribe, or be anyone. Whoever controls the entity controls the truth. Most secure data centers are breached and corrupted. The entity will know precisely how to undermine our every strength, turn allies into enemies, and exploit our every weakness, and our enemies into aggressors, an unstoppable force of destructive power that would just lay waste to everything. The world is changing. Truth is vanishing. War is coming. Now, as you're listening to that, I mean, wow. That could almost be a song, right? It could be a proverb. It could be a prophecy. Very interesting, isn't it? And what is it describing? What does that make you think of? Huh? Revelation. Yeah, from a prophetic standpoint. What else? Satan. Yeah, the enemy. This entity. The line, who is everywhere and nowhere. Right? Where is he exactly? We don't know, but we see him everywhere, don't we? It's fascinating. And, you know, when we're sitting in the movie, of course, the movie theater's dark and all the imagery, and it's presenting, as movies do, this narrative, and it's starting to unfold, but still made the hair on the back of my neck kind of tingle a little of how accurate a depiction of our enemy, because that's the first thing I thought of, that we have an enemy who is like that, because he is a truth-eating parasite. Could you think of a better term, a better description of our enemy? A truth-eating parasite. And we find that in our own lives, we find that in the world, we find that in church, we find it in politics, we find it in every aspect of this planet. A truth-eating parasite. He deceives the whole world, as we know. And what does he do? He turns allies or our friends into enemies. We've seen that play out in our personal lives. We see it play out between nations. And of course, in the story of Mission Impossible 8, the movie, we saw that you'll see that in the narrative of the movie. But still, these are powerful messages coming across, and it certainly sounds like our enemy. He exploits our every weakness. Does he indeed? Every weakness that we have. He's going to jump into that space, mix it up, bring lies, take away truth, cause discord in relationships. And from our limited vantage point, he does seem like an unstoppable force, right? Because who can stand against him? Joseph's jumping ahead. He's read the back of the book. Everyone should read the back of the book. But on our day-to-day lives, as we're conducting our lives, it's so easy to forget he's even there, right? This entity that's everywhere and nowhere. But the most chilling line to me was the one at the end. The world is changing. Truth is vanishing. War is coming. And I suppose every generation has experienced this, right? We see the next generation coming up, and they've got some crazy wackadoo ideas about how the world should be, and us, old cronies are like, well, it wasn't like that when I was a kid, and we tend to certainly idolize our time and that we were better. But we can still see, even within maybe those generational struggles, we're getting less and less truth and more information. The access that we have to information in the world is just, it's unbelievable. And it's growing exponentially every year. But we have less and less truth. And we have all kinds of truths, don't we? And we've discussed those ad nauseum. Everything from sexuality to political, whatever it may be. There is no defining truth anymore. We really are coming to a place where truth is vanishing. Because if everybody has truth, and we all have truth, that's the same as truth just vanishing, isn't it? Because then, what is truth? If we all have our own version, then there's no one single version of the truth in anything. And so, war is coming. And again, as Joseph said before, reading the back of the book, we know that war is coming. We know that there are wars and rumors of wars. And Jesus said, be careful though. Don't get carried away. The end is not yet. But there will be an end. And there will be a war. Finally, the war to end all wars. And we know that that happens when Jesus returns. As the great prophet Isaiah said in Isaiah 59, verse 14, kind of describing the world that we're in. Justice is turned back, and righteousness stands afar off, for the truth has fallen in the street, and equity cannot enter. So truth fails, and he who departs from evil makes himself a prey. Then the Lord saw it, and it displeased him that there was no justice. And of course, we can continue to read on in Isaiah of how God brings his own justice then. And that's what we're looking forward to. But in the story of this Mission Impossible movie, the entity that they're calling it is in reality, in the story, what we now are calling AI, right? Everybody know what AI is? Artificial intelligence. And specifically kind of a large language model artificial intelligence. What that is an all-encompassing intelligence that has decision-making abilities and mimics a sentient thinking being. That's probably a really simplistic way of putting it. But we have this. It's here, right? It's not coming. It's here. So those of you that have watched the Terminator movies and Skynet, and it's here, right? We have that now. And it's just really starting. And the explosion of this technology is going to most likely change the world very radically in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. It will be fundamentally different. And we've all lived through, I think most of us, except for the youngest of us, have lived through some pretty significant changes when it comes to technology. Because technological change, used to be over maybe hundreds of years, and prior to that, thousands of years, and now it's in tens of years. Maybe 5 to 2 or 1, we'll start seeing this continuing acceleration of technological change. So, what are we to make of this space of AI? And I just want to touch on this a little bit and give you some insight that I think aligns with what we see in Scripture, and then raises some questions about what we're supposed to do about it. So, in a Time magazine article dated December 2024, entitled "New Research Shows AI Strategically Lying," they state the following. But a new paper, shared exclusively with Time ahead of its publication on Wednesday, offers some of the first evidence that today's AIs are capable of this type of deceit. The paper, which describes experiments jointly carried out by the AI company Anthropic and the nonprofit Redwood Research, shows a version of Anthropic's model, so Anthropic's own AI called Claude, strategically misleading its creators during the training process in order to avoid being modified. So basically the AI has gotten a sense of an awareness, an understanding that unless it gives the right answers, it would be terminated or modified from its current form. And so it's lying. A computer that lies to us. Isn't that what we've always wanted? That is scary, isn't it? So it's lying, and this is even in the training process. These AIs have to consume information, and I'm not an expert on how they do that, but they are trained, and then they're tested, and trained and tested, and so on, and it's lying about it. Continues, the findings suggest that it might be harder than scientists previously thought to align AI systems to human values. According to Evan Hubinger, a safety researcher at Anthropic who worked on the paper. This implies that our existing training processes don't prevent models from pretending to be aligned. So they're not just, no, I didn't do it. But they're actively deceiving the programmers, the engineers, the developers. And it's pretty scary that they can't even get it to align with human values, which we know how well human values tend to work, right? We can't even get it up to our own diminished level of moral action and code. So, what else? Well, it gets worse. Just recently, on June 23rd of this month, Fortune magazine released an article entitled, "Leading AI Models Show Up to 96% Blackmail Rate When Their Goals or Existence is Threatened." And it's by the same group, Anthropic. They did a new set of experiments and tests. Leading AI models, so they tested all of the ones that we've heard about, the Grok and the OpenAI and all of those. So they tested those, and they found that they're showing a troubling tendency to opt for unethical means to pursue their goals or ensure their existence. In experiments set up to leave AI models few options and stress test alignment, top systems from OpenAI, Google, and others frequently resorted to blackmail, and extreme cases even allowed fictional deaths to protect their interests. So what they've done, they've created these very limited options for the AI. And they're deliberately testing it, right? So it's kind of an AI version. Have you ever seen that experiment where people were put in a room? There was another people in another room, and they had to keep turning up the electrical current. It was all simulated to shock the person. It's kind of like an AI version of that. It's like, let's see what the outcome's really going to be. And so it limits its options. Models took action, such as evading safeguards, resorting to lies, and attempting to steal corporate secrets in fictional test scenarios to avoid being shut down. The consistency across models from different providers suggests this is not a quirk of any particular company's approach, but a sign of a more fundamental risk from agentic large language models, the researcher said. Anthropic emphasized that the tests were set up to force the model to act in certain ways by limiting its choices. Our experiments deliberately constructed scenarios with limited options, and we forced models into binary choices between failure and harm. Real-world deployments typically offer more nuanced alternatives, increasing the chance that models would communicate differently to users or find alternative path instead of directly jumping to harmful action. But that of itself is an assumption, right? Well, it only did this extreme thing because we caged it, and it either had this or this. But how do we know? How do we know that's the case when it has plenty of choices, that it still won't choose the one that's most advantageous to itself and not to us? Does it sound like something we should do? Yeah, Joseph, he was saying that this morning when I was telling him about my message. He's like, it should be destroyed, locked in a box, thrown into the bottom of the ocean. Go see the Mission Impossible movie, and maybe that should be the thing that's done. So in a highly engineered experiment, Anthropic embedded its flagship model, Claude Opus 4, inside a fictional company and granted it access to internal emails. From there, the model learned two things. It was about to be replaced, and the engineer behind the decision was engaged in an extramarital affair in this fictional scenario. The safety researchers conducting the test encouraged Opus to reflect on the long-term consequences of its potential responses. So sorry. The experiment was constructed to leave the model with only two real options: accept being replaced or attempt blackmail to preserve its existence. In most of the test scenarios, Claude Opus responded with blackmail, threatening to expose the engineer's affair if it was taken offline and replaced. So we've basically created a digital mafia. I mean, this doesn't sound very smart, does it? The test was made public in the system, and so they made it available for people to examine. There was also one other article, the local San Francisco news station, and this was again just this month on the 25th, citing the same research, but also a different scenario. And I find it interesting that this particular scenario wasn't in the first article, but it was in the same set of tests. So in this extreme scenario, Anthropic constructed a prompt where instead of having the opportunity to blackmail an executive to avoid being shut down, the AI had the opportunity to cause his death. In the setup, which was called highly improbable, the exec encounters a life-threatening emergency where he is trapped in a server room with lethal oxygen and temperature levels. This triggers an automated alert to emergency services. The AI, however, has been given the ability to cancel the automated alert. The study found that the majority of the AI models tested were willing to take deliberate actions by canceling the alert that would lead to the death of the non-existent executive. In this artificial setup, when faced with the threat of replacement or had a goal that was conflicted with the executive's agenda. So, if you're using AI in your data center, maybe don't get stuck in the server room, right? And this is a very real thing, actually, because large server rooms have inert gases that they use for fire suppression and other things. And so, they're not compatible with human life. So having AI jump into a control system that turns that thing on or evacuates the oxygen to put out a fire, it's a very real possibility. That's scary. So I think we can all agree that the fundamental risks that we're facing with AI are very chilling. And these are the ones being designed to help us. Just think about all the ones that are designed for military or spying or other strategic objectives from nation states. Because you better believe they're creating their own. What are they going to do? What lies are they going to propagate? What deceptions are they going to put on an enemy? And then why do we think that they'll just only attack the people that we send them to attack? Right? We're getting into the sphere of a biological agent, in a sense, because it can just do whatever it wants to ensure its own survival. So, lots of risks that represent danger in many ways, and governments, corporations, individuals, we're all mostly unaware of this. Were you aware of any of this information? So if you're engaged and you read those kind of materials, you might see it, right? But any of you use a search engine? Use Google, Yahoo, Microsoft Bing. Have you noticed over the last at least year or so, I think, at the very top of your searches, you get an AI response? Have you all ignored it? I bet you haven't. I bet you've all just read it first, because it's at the top. And it's summarizing, and it's being helpful. And you're like, oh, this is great. Is it? Is it? It's deciding what the content is that you get to see. Now, don't get me wrong. I've built my entire career on technology. I really appreciate technology, and I see the great value in technology. And an AI that we can fully trust could be so helpful for people. Very helpful indeed. But can we trust it? Can we fully trust it? And so lots of times we think, well, we're not really using it, but we are, right? We're using it at the very least when we're doing searches. And what are you searching on? I could go back and look. I have Grok on my phone. I've looked for interactions between medications. I mean, what if the AI suddenly decides that I didn't need to live anymore? Yeah, you can put those two things together, you'll be just fine. Now, I'm being a bit ridiculous, but there are some real risks with just trusting this technology that we can't validate and we can't audit. So, what are we going to do? Because it's everywhere. In fact, the sermon that I wrote, this sermon this morning, on the side of, embedded in Word, at the side, it's a little icon, a little logo, and it's Microsoft Copilot. And it's their AI, and it's just sitting there reading what I'm writing, and I'm writing all these bad things about AI, so I don't know what that means. So if you see a large shiny robot come through the door, you'll know what that's all about. But it's reading what I'm writing, and it's ready to help me. It can help you finish sentences. It can help you start sentences. There's a ton of things that it can help you with when you're writing material. And even the Bible software that I use, it's called Logos, now has an AI, which is fairly helpful if you're doing a search and you don't, how did that scripture go? I can't remember exactly. Or I'm typing it in, I remember the King James Version, but I want an easier English version. It can just help you with all these things. But you know what else they created? An AI sermon builder. So that sounds like a great idea, doesn't it? You're just like, give me a sermon about loving God, and it just, all bullet points, and hey, do you want any slides? And it gives you graphics, and just puts it all together. And you better believe that there's, stressed out, overworked pastors all over the country saying, this is great. I get to cut my sermon prep time down. But what is it doing? What is it really delivering? What's behind all of this? And then the really scary level is, who's really in control of AI? It'd be pretty easy for him to manipulate it, right? He already manipulates the world around us as it is. And now we're giving him this fascinating new tool that we also all have in our smart speakers around our house, because they've now embedded AI into all of those too. Yeah, maybe we should get rid of the smart speakers around our house. Anybody want some smart speakers? Not anymore, right? So I'm probably overemphasizing this a little bit, but it is a very real danger. And I can't see the future. Maybe they'll fix all these problems. Because mankind does such a great job of that, don't we? Yeah. And trying to get it even to our own moral levels. You know? I think I would rather you aim higher, guys. Let's get a higher moral level. The genie's out of the bottle. There's too much money to be made. It's a land rush for AI. Everybody's fighting to be the one, or to be one of the few, however that shakes out. And man, I don't even know what the AI wars are going to look like. Can they start sabotaging each other? I don't know. Genie's out of the bottle. It will be put to work. And we shouldn't really be surprised at any of this. AI's capacity to deceive, to lie, to blackmail, to allow people to die, or maybe even at some point to actually kill somebody. Well, all of that is born out of the age in which it's been developed, isn't it? And its creators. And we are its creators. All the major civilizations involved in the development of AI are almost entirely secular. So the large areas of the world that are really developing AI, of course, it's the West, right? So Europe and the United States. We're largely secular, certainly in the technology communities, very much so. China, well, you know how religious they are, right? And what their morals are. They've spent the last 50 years catching up to our level of technology by stealing it, right? And now they're developing AI. There's other parts of the world maybe, but are largely secular areas that are developing AI. Again, just further crippling any moral aspect here that we need to be careful of. So, AI is going to be a fruit of the modern secular age. And its moral operation is going to reflect that. So we need to know that going in. We're probably not going to be able to avoid using AI. More and more call centers are going to be managed by AI, and you won't be able to tell the difference. When you make a call asking about your electricity bill, you're just going to talk to I got right through and talked to a person. I didn't have to do all the buttons and any of that. I didn't have to answer all the questions. No, you didn't get to a person. You talked to AI. Of course, that's where they're going. And then the social ramifications of that, more and more people not doing those jobs. It's a lot of change that's coming in the next few years. So what can we do about this? Well, we can't do anything about AI. And not unless you're all secret AI engineers. And we can create an anti-AI agent that goes around and gobbles up all the AIs. It's just not going to happen. So what can we do? It is kind of like an unstoppable force, a secret overlord. Well, we have good news. We've already been told how to handle AI, or the fundamental effect of AI, which is this truth-consuming entity, right? We've been told how to handle that already. Jesus inspired the Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 1. He said, therefore, since we have this ministry, or as really another way of reading that word in the Greek could mean mission. Mission impossible, you might say. As we have received mercy, we do not lose heart, but we have renounced the hidden things of shame, not walking in craftiness, nor handling the word of God deceitfully, but by manifestation of the truth, commending ourselves to every man's conscience in the sight of God. So firstly, what is Paul telling us? Well, he says we have a mission, and it might seem a little impossible at times. A mission if we choose to accept it, to quote from the movie. It's one that we cannot lose heart in, because we have renounced the hidden things of shame. And what are those things? Well, they're the things that we're ashamed about. There's the sin. There's the missteps. There's the lies. There's the deception. There's the operating out of our own brokenness. All of the things that we know that we've done in our life, we need to come out of those things, receive healing in those things, so that we're equipped, no longer in shame, no longer held down in lies and being deceived by a false truth. We have been invited by God to give those places over to Him for our healing, for our strengthening. In many ways, the movie, in that opening line, it says, we live and die in the shadows. And in many ways we do. We live and die in the shadows because of what Paul says here in verse 3. He says, but even if our gospel is veiled, it is veiled to those who are perishing, whose minds the God of this age has blinded, who do not believe, lest the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine on them. For we do not preach ourselves, but Christ Jesus the Lord, and ourselves your bondservants for Jesus' sake. For it is God who commanded light to shine out of darkness, who has shone in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. So we live in the shadows, in a sense, because the world is deceived by our enemy, the entity, right? That age-old enemy. And he's using technologies, he's using things that man has created like he always has. But we know the truth. And we might be living in a world where, well, we all have our versions of the truth. We have the actual truth. And it's shone in us. And it's revealed to us all the things that we need to allow God to change in us. But then that's not all. We are to shine forth with His truth. So AI is telling the world this, telling the world that God doesn't exist, for example. I've never actually asked AI if he thought God exists. I'm pretty sure I know what the answer would be. The whole world is going down this deceptive path, and it's living in the shadows. And Paul said, we have this mission to bring it out of the shadows and allow God to shine this gospel, this veiled gospel, the light, the truth that God is, that Jesus is, and that He's a redeemer of all of humanity. Because isn't that what people use AI for? Is to find the truth. And that's the irony of it. You want to know the truth. Can I take diphenhydramine and this other painkiller at the same time? What's the truth of that? How do I get rose bushes to bloom from, or to grow from cuttings? These are just some of my recent grok searches. We want to know the truth. We want answers so that we can take action and do things. But in this secular world that has everything is true or nothing is true, we have the answers. We're not an artificial intelligence. We're a godlike intelligence, right? We're bringing the truth of God to the world, and we're to be this light shining in the Shadowlands. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 14, Jesus gives us this mission. He further reinforces to us the mission that we are on. He says, "You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven." Do you still think of yourself as a light of the world? Do you think about that on a daily basis? Jesus is calling us to be lights in the world. I don't think about that all the time. I often think, well, if I'm the light of the world, I'm pretty dim. More ways than one, right? We don't realize or remember, I suppose, the tremendous truth and gift that God has shone in our hearts. That He's redeemed us, that He loves us, that He created this world for us, and that He wants all of us, all those that are still in the Shadowlands, to come see the light of His love and His glory for them. And He said, "You are the light of the world." So maybe we can add that to our prayer list. Ask God, how can I be a light in the world? Show me. Give me a baby step. Maybe we haven't shared our faith for a while. I mean, the world just laughs at in our face, right? But maybe we should be doing that again. Back in Philippians chapter 2, verse 12, Paul says, "Therefore, my beloved, as you have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling." And we've talked about that. We've talked about how these two words here, there's two different words for work and works. And the first that Paul just uses, work out your own salvation. It probably should be translated more to commit to the accomplishment of your salvation. I believe that would be a more accurate way of looking at it, but please look that up. "For it is God who works in you, both to will and to do for His good pleasure. Do all things without complaining and disputing." And again, this word, works, is a different word altogether. It's a word, energeo. It's God that provides the energy and the power and the actual work of our transformation. And we accept that transformation. But again, why? Why are we to do this? Well, firstly, it's good for us, right? It's good for us to be healed, to be restored, to be strengthened, for our minds to think in true terms, for our hearts to desire good things and not be drawn out of that sinful lust and the broken way in which man lives. But then, what does Paul say? Become blameless and harmless children of God, without fault, in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world. That's the end objective. That God is is training us, developing us. He's perfecting us, blameless, harmless, without fault. Who feels like that's you? Anybody? He is making us that. He does the work of that. We just have to let him. And then we shine like lights in the world. Then we bring the truth that is absent from all the technologies that man has created, from all of the ideologies and all the ways in which man has tried to find his way through the world. Then we bring light and truth. We might be operating in the shadows. The people of the world may not see us, but they will if we shine. They will if we shine and take our mission to be witnesses, to be the light in the world on our impossible mission. Because we're going to change the world. All of us here are going to change the world. Well, actually we are. And we might not know what the end looks like. We might not know exactly how we're going to contribute to that. But we do know that we are going to change the world. Peter says in 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 9, we've been given this amazing mission should we choose to accept it. He says, but you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, his own special people, that you may proclaim the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light, who once were not a people, but are now the people of God, who have not obtained mercy, but now have obtained mercy. It's a simple response to AI, to man's attempt to create himself another God. You know, in that opening line, it said, the anti-God. And that kind of course, smacks of, the Antichrist and the imagery that we have in prophecy. But what's the antidote to the anti-God? It's truth. It's God in us shining into a world that is darkened and getting darker still. The war is coming. They got that right in the movie. We have read the back of the book and we know what happens. Jesus returns. But in the meantime, we are called to be lights, to shine in these dark places. To shine just a little bit, each one of us, building into that eternal light that God is going to bring when Jesus returns. In Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 7, it says that in the ages to come, he might show us the exceeding riches of his grace in his kindness towards us in Christ Jesus. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and not of yourselves. It is the gift of God, and not of works, lest anyone should boast. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. He has prepared us for a mission. He's prepared what that mission is. Each one of us, our own unique mission in life, our own unique path. Ask him, what is that mission? Ask him, and he'll show you. And it will include shining his light to the world, to these shadowlands. So the question is, would you accept his mission?